in South America and so forth. And we just finished that story arc. Now he's going to be running a story where he's going to be throwing in the red ninjas, which is going to be nice because my character Ghost is kind of has a vendetta against them, so it's going to be kind of neat. Of course, we didn't even know about they had Night Creeper stats were coming in Codex, so that's going to makes us wet our teeth, and he's going up. So Ghost's past is going to be popping up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's one of those things where G.I. Joe is one of the few things, at least RPG-wise, where I will absolutely pay as soon as I see
it. Yeah. Yep, and the faction book's coming out, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But, so, like I said, I have material, I have graphics, I'm more than willing to share them with you for the game and build stuff for you.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Well, it also helps me too. If this gets popular, I might be able to get hired to do more commission work for other people too. So it does come with comes with I do the graphics.
Exactly. Yeah.
I already been yelled at by Renegade once. I pissed off some of their artists. Yeah. I went in and I kind of sort of fixed some of the maps.
Yeah. I'll be right back. Just 1 second. I gotta do something on my phone real quick. I'll be back in like 30 seconds.
No problem. Well, Jared's not going to be coming, I don't think.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. So how are you planning on running this game exactly?
That's the interesting part. I'm going to be running it, I guess the best way is kind of saying winging it in a lot of ways.
Okay, are you going to be going for how? Well, okay, let me explain this in okay, this is what I mean by this. Are you going to be doing it kind of like theater of the mind with maps? Are you going to be doing this are you going to be basing this a lot on the IDW Devil's Due stuff? Or are you going to do an inspiration from all the Sunbow, IDW, and all that stuff together and just merge it to your own?
It's going to be a bit of everything. I'm creating kind of my own world that I am I'm trying to think how to phrase it. I'm using inspiration from a lot of sources and kind of
that's what I do.
Yeah. Because there's going to be some deep cuts from the toys.
Yeah.
Because that's what got us all into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to basically try to do a bit of everything. And there's going to be silly moments like in the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's always fun. And there's going to be other things that are going to be uh, like references to the IDW stuff because I absolutely loved that. And uh, and that's kind of the big thing for me is just having fun with it and paying homage to what made what still makes GI Joe really cool. You know, like I don't know of any other toy lines that have lasted as well as GI Joe. Um, and that's the fun part for me.
Yeah.
Because there's something about the '80s toy lines that just managed to create, uh, that magic. Be it Masters of the Universe, Mask, Transformers, which I love the fact that we can actually do a Transformers GI Joe crossover
with Mask too.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Mask hasn't officially come out yet.
No, it hasn't.
I'm working on my version of it.
Yeah.
Ooh. I'd love them to do a Mask version, a Mask cane. That would be just really a lot of fun.
Maybe we'll get specially lucky and it'll be a faction.
Yeah, that would be cool because technically it was.
Right.
If I remember right, and if I'm not, my buddy Chad will probably correct me. If I remember right, they did one for the 25th anniversary version.
Yep. Agent Matt Tracker.
Yes, and it was listed as Mask being a G.I. Joe faction.
I think it was more their attempt at doing some of the crossover stuff like they did with the G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Yeah.
When that came out. But
when they had the comics for it, the background was basically Mask Tech was we retro engineered a transformer that we found, so we had vehicles that could transform.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always loved the 80s stuff. Like, I grew up with it.
Yep.
I was the target demographic, being born in 81. It was like, hey, kids, here's something really cool. And I still remember when I got Rhino for Christmas one year. And to this day, like, my favorite present of all time was Rhino.
I liked Mask, but I wasn't really too much into the toys. They were so small.
Yeah, well,
so they were hard for me to integrate with my GI Joes.
Yeah. My issue.
At least I could use my GI Joes and Transformers together.
Yeah. For me, it was more about how well the Mask toys fit in my hands. Because when I started really getting into them, I was about 5 years old, so kind of small hands.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend had all of the Mask line. He had the entire thing up until about, I want to say 87, 88. And he would bring some of them to school every day. And one day he brought all of them to school.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they got stolen from his locker.
Of course. the one thing about Mask was, the cartoon was great. Then all of a sudden he turned into a racing show, like in the second season.
Yeah.
And that just was so stupid.
Yeah, it was like, why? Why go there? It certainly wasn't because Pole Position did well in the ratings.
Actually did it really well in the ratings.
Yeah, and I do love the intro song to it. So.
But way they did it was all the complaints of the violence.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, Masters of the Universe, which, by the way, my wife and I invested in the Kickstarter, and we have all the boxes.
Nice.
the was considered the most violent kids cartoon. And I always watched, and I always thought GI Joe was more violent.
Yeah. Well, what
It was like,
back in the 80s, what amazed me was one, He-Man, part of the rules was, you can't make contact with the sword besides like hitting him in the back of that with the pommel of it. And honestly, both G.I. Joe and Cobra had worse aim than stormtroopers. And that's saying something.
oh, they could blow things up. They could blow up the ships, but all of a sudden, you had to show them escaping from the parachutes.
Yes.
I remember watching a documentary on that, and they're like, "Yeah, we had to hide the fact is how we had to kill characters and all this." And so, if you didn't see someone up after that off screen, they got killed.
Yeah.
And it was like,
yeah.
I mean, GI Joe had and so many adult stories. World Without End.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the episode
the Springfield.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are some heavy hitting stories even today. Well written.
Yeah.
And their GI Joe had so many adult storylines into it. And more, I said Transformers.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's not forget how one movie scarred an entire generation.
I saw it in the theater as a kid.
I saw
it. Yeah, so did I.
As well.
We went and saw the theater. My friends are like so excited. We see the second performance. Because we missed the early morning performance when it gets released. We get out, people were pissed. Kids were pissed. We're like, what? We're finally seeing the G.I. Joe movie because we didn't know what was happening. We watched the movie and we were so pragmatic. We hated Hot Rod. Everyone I knew hated Hot Rod and Rodimus Prime. It was like, it wasn't even a good passing the torch moment.
No.
And it killed it. And of course, what they did the G.I. Joe movie was just, they had a good idea, then they added Cobra Law.
Which could have worked if they'd done it very differently.
Yes.
And of course, the moment they remembered what losing Optimus Prime did to the kids, they immediately well, we're not going to kill Duke now.
Right.
Which everyone I knew didn't like Duke. It's like who's the most popular Transformer? It's Optimus Prime. Who's the most popular Joe?
Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
No one else counts.
Yeah.
You can kill anyone else. You just can't kill the base of the franchise.
Exactly, and of course they did bring back Optimus later.
Yeah, because the fans bitched.
Yeah.
Writing campaigns.
Yeah. And honestly, looking back at the 80s, I always say it's like some mass psychological experiment that was like, hey, let's see how far we can push a generation before they completely crack.
Oh, those cartoons, but a lot of those cartoons, the Gen 1 Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, She-Ra, Thundercats, all of those still hold up today. Story-wise, animation-wise, and he still captivate kids. I mean, when my daughter watches anime, I mean, that's the generation it does. But she watches the old cartoons and she sees and she likes them.
Yeah.
And you don't get that. I mean, when we were kids, the best 60s stuff that we got was the Batman animated stuff, the live action Batman show, and Johnny Quest.
Yeah.
Everything else was like Flintstones was annoying and Jetsons. Always as a kid, we're having those on there. I was like, can you put on real cartoons, please, for the love of God? Where's Black Star? Where's all this other really cool stuff? But
yeah, and that was really fun back in the 80s. I still watch Robotech to this day. I go back.
Oh, yeah, come on. Macross Robotech is a masterpiece. Period.
Yeah.
And even what their faces did, Harmony Gold. Even the creator of Macross loves that adaptation.
Yeah.
even though it changed some stuff, and it's actually he liked it.
Yeah.
It's actually its own thing, but he said he does it scarred. He said it's its own thing, but it's really good. It was a really good job what they did.
Yeah, I mean, merging three separate franchises into one coherent story was certainly not easy.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Um, it was it was jarring when they killed off Roy Fokker. That's for sure.
Oh God, yeah.
That's something you did not expect in an '80s cartoon.
Well, it wasn't an '80s cartoon. They just took an anime and basically tried selling it.
Yeah.
Big Voltron too. I mean, talking when
Like,
Finn got killed.
yeah, like these shows were dark.
Yes.
They weren't afraid to show, hey, this is how life is. People die in war. People die. They didn't pull punches with us as kids.
And why do you think kids of this generation are attracted to anime? Because they don't pull punches.
Yeah.
And they go, American animation, why does Avatar do well? Why are only adults watching Steven Universe? Well, because Steven Universe isn't written for kids; it's written for adults.
Yeah.
And it's not Adventure Time's written for adults,
Yeah.
But the kids aren't watching it; they're watching the anime. Well, but the kids loved Avatar. Why did they like that? Because it didn't hold punches.
Yeah.
I mean, God damn. Both Avatars had these dark storylines, and kids were hooked on it.
Oh, yeah.
And adults.
Yeah. And, of course, there's always Rick and Morty, which, I don't mind it. It's decent. I don't watch it rabidly like some of my friends.
It parodies everything I grew up as a kid. So I sit back, I laugh my ass off on it.
Yeah.
Other times I cringe.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't finished I just wait for it to come on HBO Max so I can watch it without watch it safely.
Yeah.
Because my kid cannot watch that shit.
It's like my goddaughter, who is in her 20s now. Ooh, I can't be that old, can I? Well, I got her into anime, and I got her into comic books, and she has fully embraced it. I got her into playing D&D very young. She runs her own group now, in person.
Good for you.
I told her, look, it's basically like improving a novel.
Yes.
And she's like, oh? I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, here, I'll make a one-shot for you and your friends. And they were about 10 at the time. Next thing I know, they're like, can we borrow your D&D books? Which version? She's like, well, what version were you running for us? Oh, that was 2.0.
Mm.
So next thing I know, they're running like Ravenloft campaigns, and just we're having a blast. And it's wild.
I love it. I love it.
When she was 13, I asked her mom, who's a very good friend. I've known her for ages.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her if it would be okay if I introduced her to the comic book series, The Runaways.
Oh my God. A fantastic series.
Yes. And she's like, well, I don't know. What's it about? I'm like, well, don't worry. It's not like Watchmen. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah, there's no naked blue guys. She's like, good. She's 13 and she's hormonal enough. And so
you had to watch Runaways. Good call.
Yeah. No, no.
But at least it's not rampant like crazy. Like,
no,
come on.
Reading.
Alan Moore didn't write it.
No. But she's like, well, what's it about? I'm like, it's about a group of teenagers who find out their parents are actually supervillains. She's like, I'm not sure if I want to encourage that. I'm like, come on. In our teen years, don't we all think our parents are supervillains? Like, their sole goal in life is to prevent us from having fun. And so we have fun with that. And she read it and she's like, "Oh my god, this is a really good series." I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't talk down to kids, does it?" And that was what really sold her on it.
It and all the awards it won, and rightfully
yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's one of the best comic book series I've seen in a long time. It's on my recommended list for anyone who isn't even into comics.
I never saw that swerve coming when he turned out to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I knew they were villains the whole time. I manipulated all of you. I was like, no. That was like, that was up there. Still the greatest twist to me in comics ever. Yeah. And is Thunderbolts 1.
Yeah.
And Marvel screwed the pooch with it.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the MCU.
Yeah.
Because when they did the 5-year, when everyone, the blink, where they called, whatever they did in the MCU, that was a perfect time to introduce Baron Zemo as a true villain, bring in the Citizen V, do this whole Thunderbolts thing in the middle. Like, what's the point of this? And he tried to take over the world.
Yeah.
And they failed because the villains backed up on it. That would have been great storyline. Instead, it's better to make one of the most evil Marvel villains, one of the most dangerous, the leader of the Masters of Evil, as a dancing meme. And it's like, Marvel's turned